Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. To type your question, simply click on the chat box. You will then see two symbols appear. The @ symbol will mean your comment or question will be posted publicly for others to see. The email symbol means your comment or question can be sent directly to the person of your choice from the list that will appear. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now this bit is for the parents, guardians and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned. Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. To type your question, simply click on the chat box. You will then see two symbols appear. The @ symbol will mean your comment or question will be posted publicly for others to see. The email symbol means your comment or question can be sent directly to the person of your choice from the list that will appear. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned. Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. To type your question, simply click on the chat box. You will then see two symbols appear. The @ symbol will mean your comment or question will be posted publicly for others to see. The email symbol means your comment or question can be sent directly to the person of your choice from the list that will appear. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned.
So good morning and welcome to this Careers Enterprise Company broadcast on Gatsby Benchmark 4. Today's masterclass introduces a new modelling matrix which has been developed as a guide and mapping tool to help career leaders evolve their approach to delivering careers in the curriculum. This masterclass includes an overview of the matrix and some examples of good practice from across the network to support career leaders in maintaining the profile of careers throughout 20 and 21 and beyond. Delighted to be joined by a familiar face to the Learn Live channel. Good morning, Marie.
Morning, everyone. Morning, Stuart.
Great for you to join us this morning. Thank you. Marie Jobson is the Area Education Manager at the Careers Enterprise Company. And Marie will be going through the matrix with us and also answering any questions you may have throughout the session on the live chat. So Marie, just give us a little taste of what we can expect over the next hour or so.
So this is the second masterclass, if you like, and the content for today definitely follows on really naturally from Benchmark 1. And it's brilliant to see a question already in the chat about kind of how we make sure that all of our activity is rooted in Benchmark 1 and aligning to whatever priorities in the short or longer term schools and colleges have. So what was fantastic about the previous masterclasses was the engagement with the chat. We do have colleagues with us today from the Careers and Enterprise Company who are ready to engage. So please do keep contributions, thoughts, questions, comments, any challenges or examples of practice. Please keep them coming in the chat. Much welcomed.
Thanks, Marie. And as Marie just said there, if you've got any questions, comments, feedback, support for your colleagues, this is a chance to do it on the live chat. Just a couple of house rules. If you could all sign in to the live chat now, just tell us where you are in the country, which school you're from, and your name. Just put that in the live chat just to show that it works, and then we'll then know who's joined us today for this live broadcast. Also, when you are putting your name and details in, please don't put your email address in or your phone number because of GDPR, otherwise your question won't be approved. So avoid that. And as Marie said, there will be an email address circulating where you can email the Careers Enterprise Company with any feedback or help that you need, and that will be put up by the team at Careers Enterprise Company who are here to support Marie today. So Marie, if you're happy, if you're set, we're going to ask you to introduce the first part of this broadcast, which will be introducing to us this Gatsby Benchmark 4 and how this can assist with developing an approach to careers in the curriculum. If you're set, Marie, over to you.
There are significant challenges around Benchmark 4 and careers across the curriculum. So there is pressure around time and curriculum delivery, pressures around a vulnerable labour market and the acute need to ensure that students are confident, empowered and supported to make positive transitions at 16 and 18. But with every set of challenges comes opportunity, and we currently have a golden opportunity to embed careers through the curriculum. So we should grab this with both hands and focus our support on implementing approaches to truly embed careers across the curriculum as a legacy of this time of challenge and as a legacy of the opportunity presented to us. Where careers is embedded across the curriculum, there is stronger messaging and a stronger profile for careers, and there is an efficiency in terms of covering key learning outcomes for careers. We can also use this opportunity to really engage or re-engage with SLT and governors to highlight how careers is part of the solution to addressing school and college priorities. The approaches that we'll consider today really enable an entitlement for each and every student in order to support raising aspiration and ensuring there's a clear purpose and rationale for learning. So the use of the word entitlement is critical and really deliberate in terms of moving away from an opportunity towards a universal approach for each and every student in your schools and colleges. Now more than ever, making careers relevant to students is absolutely critical to young people making positive life choices. And in addition to making careers relevant, it's really important that we make teaching and learning relevant in terms of supporting those positive life choices as well. So that's where that really exciting and golden opportunity comes from, to really ensure that legacy of Benchmark 4 from the challenge we're currently facing to where careers can be intrinsically linked to strategic objectives and a clear career learning outcomes that support strategic objectives, support vision for schools and colleges, and also really crucially support positive outcomes for students. So the ultimate starting point for what we're looking at today is a strategic careers plan and subsequent progressive learning outcomes which underpin a careers programme to support strategic priorities and vision, which, as I say, really supports and facilitates positive outcomes for students. These are the objectives for today's session, and just take a moment to reflect on these and to consider these. So the session today will give an overview of approaches to embedding Benchmark 4 that will allow for consistency and a universal entitlement that will support student outcomes and school-college priorities. We will explore how you can use resources that accompany this session to truly embed careers across the curriculum. And the main objective is to make sure that what we don't do is overcomplicate this benchmark. It is my favourite of all the benchmarks, and in the approaches that we'll look at today, we'll hopefully clarify and simplify steps that require a methodical and tenacious approach to embedding careers across the curriculum without anything massively revolutionary. So what we're going to consider today is a careers in the curriculum mapping tool, and that's shared with you. If you haven't accessed that already, there's a link to that in the chat. What this tool does and why we've created it is to really maximise the opportunity that Benchmark 4 presents to us now in our current context. And it does three things. It highlights three distinct approaches which have been developed around practice that's already developing in schools and colleges across our network, and from conversations with career hub leads who are really driving careers in the curriculum models. The resources which are available from our new resource directory also include all supporting tools you need to implement these approaches and to really embed careers across the curriculum. So that includes definitions of the approaches, breakdowns of each approaches, audit documents and checklists to support progress. There's also links to resources that support staff CPD and SLT and governor engagement. So what are the approaches? The starting point is the foundation approach. This directly evolves from Benchmark 1, and it involves you really starting with ensuring that you have got progressive learning outcomes which derive and support a strategic careers plan. The other two approaches, careers across the curriculum and employer-enriched careers across the curriculum, start to think about mobilising teaching staff and employers to truly embed careers across the curriculum by incorporating curriculum learning outcomes with career learning outcomes, with planned intent to explicitly support student outcomes and school and college priorities, while also engaging students in teaching and learning, thus positively impacting on attainment and progress. Each approach can be implemented concurrently. The approaches are not either or, but it is really important that we stress at this point that as a minimum, careers leaders should be aiming to implement the foundation model before even thinking about the other ones. And it's possible that even the more experienced career leaders among us may need to really kind of think and reflect today on that foundation level. As a careers leader myself, I was a career leader in a school in the Northeast for over 7 years. I need to kind of reflect and be honest at this point that I dabbled across all 3 approaches in my school. And in the thinking that we've done on this, I can see clearly that my focus should have really been on truly getting to grips with the foundation approach before considering good practice on implementing the other 2 approaches. You also have to keep the foundation approach ticking over while you consider the other approaches. And I didn't always do that. And that meant 2 things. One, opportunities were missed to maximise work with employers and maximise time that I had with curriculum leads. But fundamentally, students fell through the net in terms of that each and every. So achieving the foundation level consistently for each and every student does require significant commitment, yet it will yield a positive impact for young people and all young people in your schools and colleges. So the ultimate starting point, as I said, is what we're looking at today is that you've got a strategic careers plan. And from that careers plan, you've got a subsequent progressive learning outcomes from which underpin your careers programme that support strategic priorities and vision, and which most importantly lead to positive outcomes for students. So this is a recap on some of the thinking that was covered in the Benchmark 1 workshops, where we looked at the CDI framework. This framework kind of really handily articulates already careers, employability and enterprise education learning outcomes for learners from Key Stage 2 to 16 to 19 cohorts. So we considered in the Benchmark 1 workshop how learning outcomes provide a clear definition of careers for your particular school and college, thus allowing staff to absolutely recognise what do you mean by careers? What is the specific expectation of them in terms of embedding careers into their curriculum? This is an example of a worked example, if you like, of how learning outcomes can be used to enable strategic objectives. So if we consider this example of a strategic objective, and the strategic objective being ensure that all students make effective and ambitious decisions about the full range of options available to them at key transition points. What's needed there are learning outcomes that would be stepping stones for this objective. So for example, in Key Stage 3, what you might support learners to do is know how to identify and systematically explore options open to them at decision point. At Key Stage 4, you would build on that and say that learners should be able to research education, training, apprenticeship, employment and volunteering options, including information about the best progression pathways through to specific goals. So the learning outcome they're quite subtly different, and one builds on the other, but both together provide those stepping stones towards that really important strategic objective that students are making effective and ambitious decisions. So once learning outcomes are defined, then a careers leader can start to consider the best vehicle for those, including using Benchmark 4 and mobilising teaching staff. So how can teaching staff be mobilised to incorporate those key learning outcomes within their teaching? So before we consider those approaches in more detail, let's pause here. Each of the approaches in more detail. So let's pause here for any observations or questions.
Thank you for that quick overview, Marie, of this particular benchmark and the modelling tools and what those 3 approaches cover. I'm looking forward to hearing some of the thoughts now that have come through on the live chat. We've been monitoring it here, and just want to say thank you to Kelly and Rachel at the CEC for providing links. Hopefully you're finding them useful, and that will continue through the whole of this broadcast. So if you've got any questions, Rachel and Kelly can help you while Marie's doing the presentation. Marie, there's a couple of things I think that came in on the chat that you just wanted to pick up on.
Yeah, there was a great question before the session began about kind of where career sits, and I think it's really important that we take this advantage to really make sure that careers isn't seen as something that sits outside of the main business of a school or college. So the questions that we are wrangling with as careers professionals around how are we helping students prepare for successful either educational or employment outcomes are exactly the same questions. They're synonymous with what education leaders, governors and SLT are wrangling with, and it's just really about how clearly we kind of align ourselves to that. So I think the question at the beginning was when the priority is on health and well-being or preparing for exams, where does career sit? And it's really kind of looking at those learning outcomes that do speak to that self-awareness, essential skills development. It's aligning careers as part of the solution, irrespective of what the priorities of the school or college are. And they are going to be more acute at the moment. It was a really good point to raise, but it's helping people see that broader aspect of where careers filters through, rather than careers sitting outside and being an appendage to what a school or college does. We wrangle with the same questions as education leaders. So I thought that was a really good question.
Thanks, Marie. And I think your colleagues will probably deal with the mapping tool question as well. Probably a link that they can send them.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a question about where the mapping tool is, which I think was mentioned in your first part of the broadcast. So if Kelly or Rachel can point people in that direction if they've not already, that'd be brilliant. Just worth mentioning, someone's asked about recordings. This will obviously be available as a recording. The last one is already available on demand beneath the video player, but this one will also be available too, that you can watch back. And I think it was Benchmark 1 we did some months ago now. It feels like a long time ago anyway, which is also available. And that is available on the Careers Enterprise Company. So if you've missed Benchmark 1, all those webinars were there. And I think Kelly, as I'm speaking, has just put that link up as well. So if you want to go back, I think it was somebody was asking that question in the chat about that. I think it was B. Parry, asking the question about accessing benchmarks 1 to 3. You haven't done what yet for 2 and 3, but I'm sure that's on the horizon. But number 1 is certainly there, and that's where that link is. Thank you, Kelly, for that. And just if you're late to join us, don't worry, you won't miss anything. Like I say, this is all being recorded, but feel free to please sign in on the live chat like others have done this morning. Just sign in, tell us where you're coming from, which school you're part of. It'd be great to hear from you on the live chat. And just a reminder, please don't use your email address or a mobile number in your responses or questions for GDPR purposes. We just cannot publish those. Well, there is a useful email address which Kelly or Rachel will put up where you can get in touch with the CEC at any time. Well, I think that is there anything else, Marie, before we move on? Is there anything else you want to pick up on?
Yeah, I think I'm hoping we're going to consider the foundation approach and then the careers across the curriculum in terms of really, to Pauline's comments around kind of how we can really help staff and SLT understand where careers is already happening and how broad it really is. I think there is a misconception from some SLTs about what it is and where it sits, and there's a real opportunity in Benchmark 4, particularly in the auditing element for the careers across the curriculum, where we can help schools to recognise and colleges to recognise where they're already covering quite a lot of particularly the CDI framework, the curriculum for careers.
Fantastic. And that email address is just gone up there now, education@careersанdenterprise.co.uk. And thank you for those who've signed in. Hello, Liz from Bradfields Academy in Medway, who signed in. And obviously Stacey as well, career leader from Daventry Hills School, has also just signed in. So thank you. If you haven't, and Rosie as well, who's an EC from Slt LEP. Great that you can join us this morning. So I'm not going to ask Marie, we're going to move on to the second part of this presentation, where you'll be telling us all about the 3 approaches in further detail, starting with the foundation approach. If you're ready, Marie. Thank you.
Yeah. So now we've kind of done a recap on the learning outcomes that form a progressive careers programme. Let's start to really consider each of the approaches that we're talking about today in more detail. The starting point is the foundation approach, and it really is a foundation that has to be sustained as a basis for any other approach that might follow. So the key features of this approach are that there is a progressive careers programme designed by the career leader, delivered primarily in time dedicated for careers learning. In this approach as well, curriculum staff highlight the relevance of their subject to careers. So the relationship between subjects, future jobs and skills is clearly outlined, and students are supported to understand potential pathways from each subject. And if we just pause there for a minute and think about how powerful this could be as an entitlement for each student in each subject area as they move through your schools and colleges, that they're hearing that message constantly about the relevance of their subjects to careers. That is a powerful entitlement for students. But what we recognise is that within this programme approach, the accountability for the programme delivery of learning outcomes sits with the career leader. And there's a risk for that at the moment, because if the planning delivery of careers lessons or discrete time is done by the career leader at that moment, that's the time that might be squeezed currently in timetables and curriculum at the moment. There is significant time and resource commitment required from career leaders in this approach to make sure that all activity is tracked and recorded, to make sure there is a confident entitlement for each and every student, that that's happening across each subject. And as I said before, when I reflected on my practice, the crux of this approach is that if we're not getting this foundation approach truly embedded, then young people are falling through the net. So, they're not hearing how the relevance of all subjects to careers, and potentially then learning outcomes are not being delivered and outcomes will be negatively impacted. If there's not that absolute intent and not those stepping stones being covered, how will we ever get to strategic objectives being met? When we were working on this as an organisation with colleagues, I really felt that the foundation approach was, to use the analogy of baking, was our key ingredients. And this is the key approach as a foundation for embedding careers across the curriculum. I'm going to pause at this point to take any questions on the foundation approach, and here in the chat, reflections on how you do meet the foundation approach, how you make sure that there are progressive learning outcomes delivered towards strategic objectives, but also how you ensure that all curriculum staff highlight the relevance of their subject. Thinking about what actions you might have to take at this point to ensure that you've either got clearly defined progressive learning outcomes, or to ensure that all staff are highlighting the relevance of their subject. So I'm interested, how universal or established is this for you at this point?
Thank you, Marie, for going into those key features of the foundation approach and what this can actually do in the careers in the curriculum department. I'm sure a few people have taken a lot from that. We've had lots of people signing in as well, which is great. And if you've got a question about that particular part of what Marie's discussed there, the foundation approach, please feel free to use the live chat. This is your chance to ask Marie and also the team behind there, Rachel and Kelly at the CEC, any questions or information you need to support you in this. So there's Sadia's just coming. I'm new to the role and school, but would it be a good idea to have a careers champion in each academic department?
It's a really good question. It kind of tees us up for what's to come in a way, Sadia, but if you're new to role, I would really kind of concentrate on that foundation approach, just to kind of, as you find your feet, and as you kind of work out, it sounds really cynical, but kind of almost who your allies are in school, who would be kind of really willing to maybe push a bit further, because the foundation approach essentially is you as a careers leader defining what you know careers to be, what you know what your students need to know, understand, be able to do. But also in terms of staff, it's quite a light touch ask, because all you're asking them to do is make a very abstract link highlighting the relevance of their subject. So really highlighting essential skills, sectors, roles, potential pathways, and it doesn't really encroach on their teaching at all. When we get into that kind of careers champion bit, that's where you really need the section that we're coming on to next. I use a verb around mobilising staff, and careers champions are really, really strong support to when we're thinking about kind of really mobilising staff, about putting careers through their teaching, not just at the start of a lesson, end of a lesson, but really through their teaching. So it's something to bear in mind, but it's really kind of about just taking it slow and steady in a way around the foundation approach until your confidence or kind of you find your feet in the role, because it is a big role, the career leader role.
I think we've stirred a bit of conversation there, Marie, around this topic as well. Some people are saying they already have careers champions. D. Devlin, we have career champions in each subject area and used NCOP funding to provide staff training.
I love the comments from Michaela and Rosie.
Yeah, brilliant.
That Michaela is absolutely right. That foundation approach is almost your hook, isn't it? Around how do you get staff interested? So when they start to see, if they start to reference and talk about careers, if they start to see engagement go up and therefore potentially behaviour, progress, attendance, etc. But it's that hook, it's kind of showing them the value before kind of, running, like walking before you can run almost. So really getting people's interest and making the ask quite light at first, because that the next section, the careers across the curriculum, does ask a little bit more of staff. So
thank you, Marie. They are coming in thick and fast now, so maybe if we get on with the next bit, I was just conscious of time, and because I think some people are asking about careers, connections, etc. That's coming from Jenny. But what's great to see is some real good best practice going on here, and others sharing with others. So thank you for that. Keep sharing with your colleagues and helping them, because this really does help, especially with people who've just started in the job as well. It's really helpful, I'm sure, to assist them. So we're going to come back to the live chat shortly, but we're going to ask Marie to now go on to the third part of the presentation, which is really about you tell them it's about careers across the curriculum approach, isn't it, Marie? This is a key part, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I'm going to let you talk all about it now in this next session. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. So if the first approach was the ingredients, this approach is very much the cake. And the next approach that we're going to consider is the careers across the curriculum approach. The key features of this approach are that a progressive careers programme exists. However, subject teachers clearly understand and are mobilised to deliver with intent career learning outcomes. So this is an elevation from the foundation model. So where a career leader would really start to engage subject colleagues in supporting with the delivery of career learning outcomes in curriculum time. So start to move career learning outcomes from being delivered in discrete time for learning, which is vulnerable in the current model, towards embedding it in the current situation, but towards embedding it in curriculum time. We recognise that in this approach, subject teachers may also be working independently off their own bat with employers to deliver curriculum learning outcomes with reference to the world of work. And there may be potential in examples that you've got of this, for this work to just be enhanced and refined by incorporating the delivery of career learning outcomes within this work. So just by kind of tweaking the brief for employers, and by raising the awareness of curriculum staff of what your learning outcomes are, specifically by key stage, there's potential to really enhance and enrich that work and really maximise that opportunity where subject teachers are already engaging with employers themselves. Employers may be present or could be involved virtually currently, although this is not a prerequisite of Benchmark 4. So this is the ultimate approach for Benchmark 4, before we start to veer into benchmark 5 and 6 territory. This is the cake. This is where we want to get to. I've been very deliberate in not presenting these approaches as a pyramid, because the next approach that we get to is not ultimately where we want to get to in terms of embedding benchmark 4. It's this approach. So in achieving this would mean that careers is truly embedded across the school or college. And the key element being teaching staff are mobilised, empowered and confident to deliver career learning outcomes in tandem with their own teaching points. So going beyond that foundation approach of them simply highlighting the relevance of their subject, potentially in a way that's disconnected from curriculum learning. This is much more nuanced, much more strategic, and kind of threads through teaching. And this means that the accountability and responsibility for careers starts to shift from being the sole focus of the career leader to all staff. This requires CPD, strategic enablement and empowerment of careers in schools and colleges, and we will consider the different steps for each approach, including these within this session. So to put this into context and to give an example of a possible learning outcome for Key Stage 4 in our current situation, it could be that to support positive destinations for current year 11s in your schools, that the career leader sets a learning outcome that all students will understand opportunities in the local labour market. This would mean a really clear focus and brief for any work that staff do when they're highlighting the relevance of their subject to careers, and gives a really clear brief to employers who are involved at any point, and that this is part of their brief, that you really want to make sure that each and every young person understands. So it moves away from a scattergun approach where there's opportunity for students to find out about the local labour market, where we're moving towards it becoming an entitlement, and that that we're confident that each and every young person understands the opportunities in the local labour market. I'm going to pause here for any questions or observations on the careers across the curriculum approach.
Thank you, Marie, for going through those key features for the careers across the curriculum approach. Quick question for you. Do you believe that it's important for the subject teacher themselves to be already working closely with employers with reference to the world of work for benchmark 4?
I think that question kind of aligns itself really well with their careers across the curriculum, isn't it? Because a lot of teachers will just kind of recognise the value in terms of engagement and bringing their subject to life. So that's really important. The benchmark 4 bit is really about how employers help with the context. We're going to get into where it starts to veer into benchmark 5 and 6 at the minute, but I think that is really important. And what I think there was a comment earlier about how do you make sure that's done consistently, and that's a really good question to think of about consistency, because a member of staff bringing in a friend, a colleague, a neighbour into a lesson for one lesson might not be something that can be sustained or is consistent. If there's a scheme of work, lesson plans that are developed, co-created with an employer and embedded across a department, that's where we start to get towards more consistency and entitlement for young people. So it's about how you use employers. They don't always have to be in front of children in terms of benchmark 4 or learners. Obviously for benchmark 5 and 6, that's a separate query. So, but it's about that consistency and the entitlement. I would say that's the key.
Thanks, Marie. And Lorraine was asking, can anyone share their mapping against the CDI framework? Did you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, there's two things that I hope will be useful for that. The mapping tool does contain an audit, which is essentially where staff can help articulate where they're already doing elements of the CDI curriculum. But in the can-do guide, there's a worked example. So where there's a strategic objectives for a school, very similar to those outlined by Pauline earlier on, and then how that can then be translated into learning outcomes and how that can then be delivered. So there is a worked example of a careers programme in the can-do that might meet your needs, but please come back if that isn't right. And can I just pick up on a comment from Joe as well around it's always brilliant to have those display boards, etc. It's really about that engagement. So benchmark 4, strictly speaking, is about highlighting the relevance of that subject. And I think it's really down to you as a careers leader really to make that informed judgment about do you think, did that land with the students? If they truly understand the relevance of their subject and they truly understand subjects and linked skills, linked sectors, linked pathways, then we can be confident. But it is your call in terms of how well it's almost landed. Is it effective? So really thinking about where it's got learners to on their journey rather than the activity itself, if you like.
Brilliant. I just want to say thanks again to Rachel and Kelly, giving some more links to people. The Can Do guide, which is relatively new, it's just been posted up there. So thank you, Kelly. That's all available there. And B. Parry, I think you've had your response there to a group on social media that you can join to keep in touch with career leaders around the country. And I don't know if there's a question just come in there, Marie. I don't know if you saw that one. Can you say more about what progressive careers learning outcomes look like? Does this mean appropriate level of input?
I really would. Yeah. That's from Ben.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I really would just spend 5 minutes if you can, Ben, just having a look through the CDI, because it really is progressive. They've got kind of learning areas, if you like. Essentially, it comes down to helping students around self-awareness, opportunity awareness, and then how they then manage a career, so applications and then beyond. So they kind of come under those 3 main groupings, these learning areas. But absolutely, there are learning outcomes where you can see things build in each of those areas for Key Stage 2, 3, 4 and 5. So I really would kind of have a look. But again, the worked example in the Can Do guide shows that how each learning outcome builds on what's gone before and then prepares for what is to come. And it's up to you in terms of what learning outcomes you feel, or learning areas, if you like, you feel are priority for you at the moment. But please do have a look at that CDI framework. It's really useful.
Good stuff. Thank you, Marie. We're going to move on, if I may. Thanks for answering those questions, and please keep your questions and ideas coming through the live chat. It's great to see people helping others and sharing resources as well, so keep that coming through on the live chat. And if you haven't signed in already, if you've just joined us, you could please use the live chat to tell us which school you're from and which part of the country you're in on the live chat. If you could do that, that would be brilliant as well. So I'm going to pass over to Marie to do the 4th part of your presentation, which will be showing us the 3rd approach, which is employee-enriched careers across the curriculum. Thank you, Marie.
So in our baking analogy, I've referred to this approach as being the cherry on the cake. This is a cherry on the cake which can distract and risks not being truly effective without the foundation approach and the careers across the curriculum approach. And I very much say this from experience. So remember, this is not a progressive model. We're not aiming to get to this point for all students. We're aiming to get to careers across the curriculum for all students, so that careers learning outcomes are delivered seamlessly through all subjects with a progressive careers programme. So the key features of this approach are the same as careers across the curriculum, yet in this approach, curriculum learning and career learning outcomes are still delivered, but through meaningful employer encounters and or experiences of work which are often project-based and very much sit within the realm of benchmarks 5 and 6. So just want to kind of consider what that means, because the interesting element to this approach is around the employer engagement and time allocation. So there's nothing to say that there is not employer engagement in either foundation approach or careers across the curriculum. The key difference for this approach is that it very definitely moves from benchmark 4 into benchmark 5 and 6. So that means that to be meaningful, it should have career and curriculum learning outcomes within the Meaningful Encounters framework, and that often involves moving outside of timetabled allocations due to visits, encounters, project work, etc. So you can see here why this is more of an opportunity for students, and it's not necessarily about an entitlement around benchmark 4. So we had when we worked on this with ECs, there was a really interesting comment about an 80-20 model. And from my own reflection as a careers leader, I probably spent 80% of my time on benchmark 4 for 20% of my student cohort. So I would very much embrace, get involved in this kind of approach with fabulous opportunities for young people. But I wasn't spending enough of my time on that foundation level and really making sure that actually, as an experience day in, day out, each and every young person understood the relevance of their subjects to careers and was supported to access progressive learning outcomes through the curriculum. So we've really got to kind of be cautious around the employer-enriched careers across the curriculum approach in terms of, is it definitely an entitlement? And there is obviously a risk at the moment around some of these activities where we're moving into benchmark 5 and 6 due to pressures on timetabling and curriculum at the moment. So there we have it. Those are the three approaches that we want to consider in terms of embedding careers across the curriculum. Before we move on to supporting resources and stepped approach towards each one of these, let's pause again briefly just for any observations and questions.
Thank you for that, Marie. I'm sure a lot of people would have found this approach very interesting and something to seriously think about when including employers. Let's take a look at some of the questions that have come in on the live chat, and just going to get rid of that jargon for a minute. We like to jargon bust here on the channel. So what's DOTS? So if anyone doesn't know, I asked you that, didn't I, ages ago, and I can't remember what you said. So I find the DOTS career planning model useful. What is that?
So DOTS is from careers theory, and it's really articulated around that, helping young people that self-awareness, opportunity awareness, and then the career skills and essential skills management around it.
Fantastic, thank you. And Pauline's asked about most visits have been cancelled, all work experience has been cancelled. We have loads of virtual presentations, but they are separate to curriculum learning. I struggle to join the dots.
And that is a real challenge around, first of all, around kind of the virtual presentations, thinking just purely kind of through benchmark 5 and 6. There is still very much a place. We're talking today just about kind of benchmark 4, but there is a place for those separate employer encounters that kind of cover the whole cohort, if you like. So they're still, as long as there's kind of clear articulation of what the purpose of that event is, where it sits within that progressive programme, there's a lot of value, and I think we really welcome how meaningful virtual encounters can be and experiences. But in terms of benchmark 4, it's possible that this year, in terms of where staff are and where we are with careers in schools and colleges, depending on context, it could be that benchmark 4 is simply that foundation approach, just consistently helping staff to make those abstract links. How do they highlight the relevance of their subject? So in terms of that joining the dots, if you like, it could be that is enough this year, because there is so much going on. We're under such pressure this year.
Yeah. Thank you to Lisa signing in from Walsall in the West Midlands. Thank you for signing in on the live chat. And also we had another Lisa from Parkfield School in Bournemouth. So 2 Lisas, different parts of the country, signing in. So thank you for doing that. And if you haven't, please feel free to do that through the live chat so we know which school you're coming in from today. As you know, on Learn Live, we do lots of virtual encounters live with students across the country. And that question has kind of come up as well about meaningful encounters, and something we were talking about before we came on air, wasn't it? About that point, about virtual and being meaningful. Is anything you wanted to mention on that point, Marie?
I think what we're really seeing is that employers are really keen to still lean in So in terms of those virtual events, there's some really good practice emerging around, you know, how to get a meaningful event and really concentrate on kind of, well, what is it when time is so tight, and it, you know, if there's just this one opportunity with year 10, with year 11, it's really maximising that opportunity, isn't it, with employers, and thinking, what is the specific outcome that I really need from this, and making it really targeted. And I think that's one of the messages from the Can Do Guide, in a way, is we've almost been forced into this situation because of the pressures around COVID, but we need to think about, sometimes by doing less, we can actually achieve more, when we're really thinking about plotting everything towards kind of strategic objectives that the school and college are working towards. So, but there's some amazing practice emerging about some really meaningful events, and no shortage of employers who are wanting to lean in and support.
Kelly's just gone back to Ross, who was asking about alternative provision and SEND, as people can dip in and out throughout the academic year. And Kelly's just responded to that. And I know that comes up pretty much every time we do one of these broadcasts, didn't we, about the alternative and provision.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, keep your questions coming in, and really great to hear from everybody. And please keep sharing best practice as well with your fellow career leaders and advisors who are on this broadcast today. A huge number have turned up for this, so lots of people online right now listening to Marie. And yeah, I'm sure if you've got anything that you can suggest to help your colleagues, that would be most welcome. And I'm going to now ask Marie, if you're happy, Marie, we'll move on to the fifth part of your presentation, where you'll be showing us some of the supporting resources that are available and include those important 9 steps. Thanks, Marie.
Thank you.
Each of the approaches that we've got have the same 9 steps and have their own considerations and actions, if you like, around these 9 steps. And what I'll go through today are the tools and resources that will support you to embed each of the approaches, obviously starting with the foundation. But the 9 steps that we think about are these. Firstly, how do we help make careers relevant and accessible? What we don't want to do is to ask staff to boil the ocean. We need to be really clear about specifically what does careers mean in your school and colleges, and specifically what elements of careers are you wanting them to incorporate into their teaching and learning. So this is the backbone. How do we firstly identify learning outcomes for careers? How do they relate to strategic priorities and student outcomes? And how do we help staff to understand exactly what we mean at each point about careers, how they can incorporate it into curriculum, staff can incorporate it into their teaching and learning to their advantage as well. Really crucial that we consider auditing when we think about each of the approaches as well. How can we really identify where career learning outcomes are being delivered organically already within teaching and learning? So once we've highlighted to curriculum staff what we mean by careers, by sharing learning outcomes, staff will recognise where they already deliver those. And it might just be about making things a little bit more explicit, or it might help you actually really clearly address any gaps in coverage of key learning outcomes. Engaging SLT and governors requires a different level of this for each approach. And what we cover for each approach is the level of engagement necessary, and it's really crucial to say that for the foundation approach, that core approach, the level of SLT and governor engagement does not have to be significant. We also think about tracking and recording, and really this is crucial. And it's really where we would advocate that careers leaders really focus their attention at student level. It's about ensuring that there is an entitlement and coverage for each and every student, with a particular focus at the moment on who vulnerable groups are in schools and colleges, with an acknowledgement that those groups might have shifted due to COVID. The measuring impact really is supported by and is intrinsically linked to step 1. So in step 1, you specify what you are measuring for each key stage. You're identifying what do you need students to know, understand, and be able to do as a stepping stone to positive student outcomes and strategic school and college priorities. So that impact needs to flow from, do students know, understand, are they able to do what you've kind of set out in those learning outcomes? There's also an opportunity to start to have a look at potential impact on other outcomes, for example, progress, behaviour, attendance, etc. I'm fully cognizant that that is obviously affected by many other things, but there is an opportunity to look for positive patterns in this as well. CPD obviously again looks really different across the three approaches. So in the careers across the curriculum, CPD will be much more intense because what you're aiming to do is to mobilise staff. And that's where we're starting to shift that accountability so that staff recognise and understand your learning outcomes and feel confident and feel bought in to weave them through their teaching. CPD would be a much lighter touch in the foundation approach. Resources are absolutely linked. So each approach has different requirements around resources and again is informed by CPD in terms of what is expected of careers leaders and or subject staff. What we're really trying to do as an organisation is map and tag resources by career learning outcomes as well as by curriculum learning outcomes to really help careers leaders and curriculum staff identify resources that they can just pick up and use a lot more easily. Time is obviously about being realistic and being creative about what is possible within the curriculum and within timetabling processes. The beauty of careers across the curriculum is that pressure should be taken away from delivery in discrete time, drop-down days, careers lessons, assemblies, all those things that might have been squeezed out, because the aim is for careers learning outcomes to be delivered at pace within curriculum teaching time woven through curriculum teaching. The final consideration or step is around employer engagement, and it's a consideration for all approaches. And what's really crucial again is that benchmark 4 in of itself does not depend on the presence of employers. So the foundation approach means that there's a progressive programme delivered for careers and all staff are highlighting the relevance of their subject to careers. Careers across the curriculum means that curriculum learning is enhanced and enriched by the incorporation of career learning outcomes. Employer enriched approach is the cherry on the cake. So the priority for benchmark 4 is that it's an entitlement embedded from the foundation approach for each and every student. And anything beyond that does start to stray into benchmark 5 and 6, which comes with its own entitlement, but it really falls under best practice for those benchmarks. So each approach does have an overview matrix with suggested actions for each of the steps that I've just gone through, and there is also a checklist for each of the approaches to support progress, just to kind of take you through each approach and really stepped around how each approach is embedded. And those resources are available. There's a link in the chat, but also in the resource directory. So just a review. There is a definition for each action in the approaches, the checklist, but out of the 9 steps for each approach, what we really want to focus on are the 3 critical steps. Make careers relevant. As a career leader, define your key progressive learning outcomes for each key stage. What do you want and need students to know, understand, be able to do to enable positive student outcomes and to really be part of the solution, if you like, around school and college priorities. So it's about really clear intent and stepping stones towards that. Audit is absolutely essential to make sure that careers leaders are aware of all the activity that's already been delivered organically, so you can recognise and celebrate that, and not then go and reinvent the wheel somewhere else if it's already been covered, particularly in core subjects like maths, science and English. So it's really then looking at a gap analysis to work towards universal implementation with intent. And crucially, you must record. So auditing must be followed up with recording in Compass, Compass Plus, although I do recognise that lots of careers leaders separately record against learning outcomes. And if you wish to look at that as a way to support Compass Plus completions or Compass completions, there are tools to start to record that in the resource pack. So I really want to think about what it means in terms of focus and actions for you for foundation approach. So a primary task for career leaders to really be confident that you've got learning outcomes that are the stepping stones towards planned impact for students, and that will meet any strategic objectives. In the foundation approach, the only expectation of curriculum staff is that they will all highlight the relevance of their subject to careers and make links to skills and opportunities. There's no suggestion in the foundation approach that they need to go into teaching. That can be done through homework, through starters, through plenaries, etc., as a foundation. So it's really about a tenacious, methodical approach that is necessary in terms of supporting all staff to do this and to ensure that auditing and recording takes place to entitle each and every student. Before we have a look at some examples of practice, let's pause again for comment and reflection.
Thank you for that, Marie. It's incredibly interesting to see those 9 steps with regards to these approaches and how they come together in the form of the checklist you've mentioned in your presentation. And please remember, everyone, that there's been some useful resource links in the live chat for you to go after this broadcast. Thank you to Kelly and Rachel for keeping us all up to date there and helping the people on the chat today. There was something you wanted to pick up on, wasn't it, about virtual encounters, Marie, I think that came in during that presentation.
Yeah. There's a question here about the audit. So the audit in terms of there are other examples in the resource directory. There's obviously other ways that you might wish to approach this. In the modelling tool shared today, we literally just ask people to articulate to articulate where and how they cover learning outcomes, so that you get that kind of picture as a career leader. But there are other, you can do a more thematic audit, and there are some on the resource directory to have a look at. I know there's quite a lot of questions, obviously, that link more to benchmark 5 and 6, but I think it is important to cover them around the virtual events and how do we make sure that they kind of meet the benchmark, if you like, around making it meaningful. There's some really good guidance came out in the summer just to help give that guidance. I think if you read it, it's really interesting because it's kind of what we should be and would be applying anyway to physical encounters, but it just keeps us really focused on, you know, what's the purpose of the event, that two-way interaction, opportunity to participate, but also in experiences of work that the young people are meeting a significant number of people or several people, and the significant number of opportunities to engage. So it is worth having a look at the guidance that's come out. There's nothing in there, as I say, that doesn't really apply to physical encounters. So it should give you that good steer and good support.
Thank you, Marie. I'm just checking if anything else has come in as you've been talking there, but plenty of links to the resources, which really useful tool that you've launched, isn't it? This resource directory. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, because that's recent addition to your catalogue of resources.
Yeah, it's lovely. We've got both Rachel and Kelly on the call today from the education team. Kelly, this is her her project, the resource directory. So it's really exciting that it's launched and that Kelly's with us today to help direct us to those specific, but it is a very easy to use directory. There's a number of search options on it, and there's a wealth of resources. So please do, as Kelly's appealed to Nick, please do share the lessons that you're creating if you're comfortable to do so, so that we can help other people kind of just see how you're approaching it. And do check out the resource directory if you haven't done so already.
Perfect. We've got one last section. Are we okay if we move on to that to keep us on track? Well, thank you for answering those questions, Marie, and do keep them coming in and your ideas on the live chat. It's great to see so many of you taking part in that today. Now I'm going to pass over to Marie for the final part of your presentation, where you'll be showing us some incredible examples of Benchmark 4 being introduced into schools and how they have helped. So over to you, Marie. Thank you.
So we're really excited that we've launched our new resource directory to help you access resources to support all benchmarks, but obviously for today for Benchmark 4. So please do look at the resource directory for that. But what I want to start with is thinking about an example from Doncaster that was created by enterprise coordinators there. And what it starts to do is starts to help teaching staff to highlight the relevance of their subjects by using key events and initiatives like Women into STEM, History Weeks, etc., to start, and they call those stimuli, to start to link those stimuli, big events that schools and colleges might naturally want to promote and get students involved with, to help teachers make links to local employers and key resources and to related careers. So when we think about a career leader, thinking about that foundation approach, making sure that all staff are highlighting the relevance of their subject to career paths, the key here to implementing a tool like this would be to really think about how do we audit and record where it was actually happening beyond an offer being made to staff to seek out resource. How would a career leader really make sure that each and every young person was benefiting from that? The next approach, again, that is next example, that is available again on the resource directory, is a really good, strong example from Stoke and Staffs in collaboration from Harewood Academy and employers. This really sits within careers across the curriculum and does have potential for scalability in terms of the resources that have been developed linked to schemes of work for maths. So they're off the shelf ready for maths teachers following that exam board to pick up and deliver without the presence of employers necessarily, because what has been done is the curriculum learning has been put in the context of the world of work for maths using insight from an employer. So subject teachers themselves worked with employers to highlight the relevance of their subject to career pathways and to embed the learning within the world of work. So one thing that we would be really asking that career leader to really consider is think about how, if you know that your subject staff are working with employers to do this, is maximise that opportunity and help them understand what are your key learning outcomes for the key stages they're working with that they could potentially weave in to this. So going beyond highlighting the relevance of the subject to possibly incorporating learning outcomes on LMI, challenging stereotypes, understanding the world of work, but really specifically with those learning outcomes from the CDI framework. Similarly, there's a really good example from Great Marlow School, where again, a teacher got an embryologist to come in and deliver curriculum learning. So really putting that learning into the context of the world of work. So again, we'd be advocating that the career leader should be aware of that, to look at organically with where the planning for this session was, which other career learning outcomes could they almost check off for those students in those sessions. But where is the opportunity to enhance the brief for the employer and the curriculum teacher to incorporate career learning outcomes? So to make sure that career learning outcomes are covered where employers are already working with curriculum staff, particularly when drop-down days, assembly time, etc. is being squeezed. Again, another similar example from the Misbourne School is where in Year 9 GCSE Art, students worked with publishers to put a everyday school project into the context of the world of work, with a project that was done within teaching time. So again, it's careers across the curriculum, but it had real potential, this one, to with slight tweaks, to be to have the meaningful employer encounter and experience of work framework applied to also be counted for benchmark 5 and 6. This example really is around that employer enrich, that cherry on the cake. So it explicitly had as a Year 12 BTEC business studies project from the outset, the career leader, the curriculum leader, and the employer work together to co-create the aims from the CDI framework, from the employer, what they wanted as a benefit, and crucially what the curriculum leader needed for actually assess BTEC work. So the outcomes were co-created that met everybody's needs, and a real world brief was set that allowed students to make progress against career learning outcomes and curriculum learning outcomes. So there was an element of careers across the curriculum because some of this happened in teaching time. However, there was also really exciting opportunity to bring that experience to life through visit and offsite experiences for some of the students. So that bit was that element of, it was a cherry on the cake where that was able to happen. But crucially, the bit that's important was the bit that really took place in the lesson, where there was that core delivery of career and curriculum learning outcomes. The next example that I wanted to focus on is not an example of implementation. It's really a strategic commitment that from a senior leadership team. And we're starting to see this happen more and more, where colleges or school senior leadership team and head teachers are almost kind of mandating that careers must be embedded across the curriculum. What we need to be mindful of is that careers needs to be defined. So in this approach, we need to apply that foundation approach to make sure that staff are absolutely clear about the definition of careers for their school or college and for particular key stages. So in this example, there may be work happening in the foundation, careers across the curriculum, and employer-enriched learning across all of the departments. And we often hear schools saying that they're appointing careers champions in departments. So again, it's about not expecting any careers champions to boil the ocean. So when they are working with their colleagues in departments to incorporate into schemes of work, careers into schemes of work, it's really narrowing down what is meant by careers. So we would still have to think about the learning outcomes and that staff are confident with those. So let's just kind of revisit the foundation, the careers across the curriculum, and the employer-enriched, particularly when we're starting to think about how careers might be mandated or how careers might be enabled through different schools or colleges. We still need to be mindful of the different approaches, starting with the foundation approach. I love this quote. This quote actually came from the Hayward Academy, where the maths example came from. But crucially, this quote is from an English teacher in that school. So what the lesson learned there was that teachers listen to teachers, heads listen to heads. And what has happened in Stoke and Staffs is not only have other departments kind of seen the impact and the enthusiasm of staff who've seen the value of embedding their curriculum learning into a world of work context. So it has moved across the school to other departments, but crucially, it's moved across the region. So teachers in maths networks, English networks, etc., are hearing from colleagues in Stoke and Staffs themselves. So it's not the career leader driving this. Subject staff are starting to drive it, which really brings back, in terms of the career leader, the responsibility being on making sure the CPD is right, around mobilising and understanding the learning outcomes, but auditing, tracking and recording as well, particularly where staff are motivated to doing this themselves around benchmark 4 and hopefully benchmark 5 and 6 as well. So just to round off before we stop for final reflection and questions, the main resource for this session is the modelling tool guide for benchmark 4. You may also want to refresh around the benchmark 1 sessions and the associated resources for them. Recently, we've released a Careers in Context, a can-do guide about having the confidence to make decisions in the challenging times that we're currently in around COVID, so how we can use some of the challenges as opportunities. We're also, as I've referenced, really excited to announce that the resource directory, a one-stop shop for careers leaders with a huge range of resources and best practice, is also live now as well. One of the resources featured in the resource directory and in the Gatsby School Toolkit is Resource and Thinking from Forum Talent Potential. The green box is taken from the Schools Toolkit, so please don't worry if you haven't got time to note these down. But so there is an approach from Forum Talent Potential on there, very similar to careers across the curriculum, potentially without the step of the career leader really ensuring that their learning outcomes are embedded in any work with employers. So there's a wealth of free resources from Forum Talent Potential and a stepped approach to consider. There is a paid for element from this organisation, so today what we're highlighting is the free resources and how they can support you in thinking about how you might approach careers across the curriculum. There's some really good case studies, videos, and the stepped approach is freely available as well. A reminder about our free training offer. We've got a free online introduction to careers leadership models and a fully funded face-to-face offer with an extra 650 places available this year, although demand for those places is high. So as someone who did complete the career leader training face-to-face, I can truly endorse this as a transformative piece of training around what is actually possible with a strategic approach to careers in a school or college. And that's very much what we're hearing. Very, very strong feedback from the 1,300 careers leaders who've already completed that training, where 96% either agreed or strongly agreed that the training has really helped them identify action to improve their practice. And finally, if you don't already receive our updates from us as an education team in the Careers and Enterprise Company, please register your details for these for our Careers Leader newsletter and follow the link that's in the chat. And we'll stop for final questions.
Thank you for that, Marie, and thank you so much for showing us those real-life examples of how implementing those three approaches you've talked about work in the classroom or broader school. I know you want to talk about one in particular, is it Penwortham, that's not far from where we are here in Lancashire, in Preston.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I wanted to kind of pick up on a comment that came through, I think, from Sadia really early on in the presentation about careers champions. And I think, again, when you're thinking about careers champions, or if you've got careers champions or ambassadors in departments, it's still really important to kind of give them a steer, if you like, make sure that they understand what are the priorities, because careers is so broad. It's that idea of doing less to achieve more, really keep people kind of really focused on what the key bits of careers is that you need to cover, and make sure that careers champions kind of know that. And we are seeing a lot more like the examples of Penwortham, where schools are mandating either tutor times, drop-down days, weeks for careers, and asking that department to take that responsibility on. So it's really helping a department to shape it and keep it contained where you want it contained, with the learning outcomes that you want to cover. And that comes down to that kind of communication and staff CPD, but just wanted to kind of come back to how to maximise that role, really.
Thank you, Marie. And it's just worth mentioning that I was asked earlier about the recordings. We did work with you on Benchmark 1 earlier this year. That is available on the CEC website in the resources area, and also this broadcast will be available in the next day or so in the same place as well. And if Rachel or Kelly could just remind us where that is on your page, if you've not done already, that'll take you straight to where those videos live, and you can watch it back at your leisure. Benchmark 1 is quite a lot of component parts to it, wasn't there? I think you remember there was 4 stages, but it's definitely worth looking at. Keep your questions coming in. We've had a question in about linking between careers, enterprise and the United Blended Learning Year Plan. Don't know if you've seen that one.
It's the Unifrog one. Yeah, that would be interesting to see if anyone's.
Sorry, Unifrog. I didn't mean you. Yeah, and I know there's other platforms exist, but it is important to be able to link it and evidence it. And has anyone done a virtual careers fair? That's a good one. I'm sure there has already. I'm sure people can help with that and how they prepared for that in their school. So if you can help Beverly with that question. Sadie's asking, how do you register for the newsletter? I think that was on your slide, but if the guys from CEC can just put the link up to that, so Sadie can register for your Career Leader newsletter, that would be great.
I think the other one that's come up is about the Career Leader training. So there is the free modules from the CEC website, but the full thank you to Mandy for the comment about the Career Leader course. I'm a graduate of that course as well, in terms of, so I really kind of am a big advocate for the level 6. It's available at level 7 and not accredited as well. But it is really, really transformative in terms of your approach, going through a bit of careers theory, but really thinking about that practical strategic careers plan, progressive programme. So there is a further 650 places. Please do register, because there's been a really strong response to those. And I think Kelly's put the link on to the Career Leader training. So please do have a look at it. It does attract the bursary as well, of course, which is nice.
Always. Sue just said Belinda from Dame Allen's in Newcastle has done a fair recently. So maybe there's some advice there. Just also,
lovely to see Sue and Belinda. I know them from the northeast, so hello to Sue and Belinda.
I thought you might. You're not that far away, are you? Where you are today? No one's mentioned your map, by the way, today. No one's mentioned it. Usually someone.
Normally it gets a shout out.
Yeah, no one said that. Very impressive map there that really shows us every time we do one of these things. Also, just worth a mention, on the live chat, you can scroll back right to the beginning of this. In fact, you can go back into the last chats that we had on this particular subject from other career leaders who took part in that first event. So if you wanted to go back through, there's loads of links there to help you and answer hopefully some of the questions you've had today or didn't even know you needed to know the answers to, but they're all there on the live chat to help you. So scroll back through and have a look at all of that. Okay. I just want to say, Marie, unless there's anything else, I think that's been a really good session. Very interactive, lots of people helping others, which is always good. And please stay on the live chat, because Marie and the team will stay on. So when we do show one of the other videos on the channel, the Marie and the team will still be there. So don't go anywhere. Keep asking your questions on the live chat, and the team will continue to talk to you on there. Even though Marie's going to be going offline, she'll just still be online, if you know what I mean, on the live chat. So thanks for that, Marie. Is there anything else you want to say? Any closing remarks, or are we okay? We're good.
No, just to echo, brilliant chat today. Really, really useful. So thank you all so much.
No problem at all. And just wanted to say that we're going to be back again in the near future, going benchmark 6, which I believe Marie's going to also be presenting on. So details to follow on that. We haven't quite got the dates yet in the diary, but once they are confirmed, we will then get them out to everybody who's been involved today and in other broadcasts as well. So that's benchmark 6 will be the next benchmark that we cover. And for those who may need that bit of advice, like myself, benchmark 6, just remind us what that is, Marie, please.
Experiences of the workplace.
There we go. Perfect.
I think it would be brilliant just to connect with Pauline offline. It would be brilliant to keep that dialogue going. The education team is careers leaders. We've done this role, obviously not in the conditions that you're currently working in, but we're really keen to move away from rhetoric and really think about how we can actually help you. So please do engage with us. The education inbox is us and one more colleague who'll answer. It's not a bigger team. There's only the 4 of us who'd be in there. So please do engage with us, and we'll do what we can to support.
Yeah, absolutely. And the email address as well to get in touch with the CEC with any ideas or questions, education@careersenterprise.co.uk, which you can find that address further up in the link, but I'm sure Rachel or Kelly will just repeat that as well on the live chat. Marie, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you so much for giving up your time today, and we'll look forward to seeing you back here on the Learn Live channel in the very near future. Enjoy the rest of your week and take care.
Thank you all.
Take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. To type your question, simply click on the chat box. You will then see two symbols appear. The @ symbol will mean your comment or question will be posted publicly for others to see. The email symbol means your comment or question can be sent directly to the person of your choice from the list that will appear. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now this bit is for the parents, guardians and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned. Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. To type your question, simply click on the chat box. You will then see two symbols appear. The @ symbol will mean your comment or question will be posted publicly for others to see. The email symbol means your comment or question can be sent directly to the person of your choice from the list that will appear. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned. Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. To type your question, simply click on the chat box. You will then see two symbols appear. The @ symbol will mean your comment or question will be posted publicly for others to see. The email symbol means your comment or question can be sent directly to the person of your choice from the list that will appear. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned. Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. To type your question, simply click on the chat box. You will then see two symbols appear. The @ symbol will mean your comment or question will be posted publicly for others to see. The email symbol means your comment or question can be sent directly to the person of your choice from the list that will appear. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned.